Well, while we are waiting for Rajashri to come on, but I don't see why we don't go ahead and start. Um,
Mm.
you know, um, and thank you guys for joining us. These are always so amazing, and a lot of good stuff always ensues as a result of just kind of just general good conversation. So I'm happy just to open it up to anyone here who has a question. I know we have one question from someone that was written in, but why not start with you guys being here online? And if not, no problem. Can kick off with the topic or with that first question, Matt, that you can read.
Well, we could start. Yeah, we could start with so Shanti. Shanti Perkins asked sent in a question, and her question was, and it's a shame Rajshu's not here because I think Rajshu would have some things to add to this. But what are recommendations for somebody who's new to the yoga who has severe hip arthritis? Are there any pose modifications that can allow a safe practice? I certainly have many
I,
things to say, but why don't you
yeah,
start with
I'll
that?
just say, I mean, I have been x-rayed with what they call severe arthritis in my left hip. And so when I hear a question like that, I kind of feel comfortable with it. And at the same time, I want everyone to be careful when they hear something like that, because I mean, the yoga helps me tremendously. Um, the heat and the stretchings, hopefully people will hear this recording, are just so important to, um, arthritis, right? Which is, getting that movement. And then, it's just about doing it slowly. One thing for me, and I know this probably sounds boring, but making sure that you do the posture 100% the right way and you stay true to the alignment, because something got you there in the first place that wasn't course correct. So now you're trying to course correct, and so you got to be extra sticky about making sure that you're doing things slowly and in the right way, extra attention to that kind of detail. And I have found, a lot of ease, and, throughout the entire day, I don't have that pain, because that's what happens too with arthritis. If you don't move, it can be called referred pain, and you can feel it in weird areas, like down your leg, front, back, side. And then all of a sudden you start to drum up in your head that maybe there's more wrong, right? And that's why you got to be careful, too, right? Not to let your mind go down a rabbit hole, and just stay with your breathing, do the postures. The heat is your friend. Go really slow. That's basically the beginning of what I would say to this person. Matt and Sarah, if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, I think the I think in some senses the worst thing you can do with arthritis is retreat from it. If you run away from it, it just gets worse and worse and worse. And so, sometimes we do with beginners, we do a little exercise like in Bikram Basics when we're introducing them to the practice, and we say to them, interlock and squeeze your hands together so tight that your knuckles go white, that your fingers go white, and just keep squeezing and keep squeezing and keep squeezing for like 5, 10, 15 seconds until it feels a little weird. You can feel some weird sensation. It's even a little bit painful to squeeze this tight, and then let go. And suddenly you feel this rush, this sensation that goes through the joints. And it's very, very good if you've got problems with arthritis in your fingers. That exercise will create a temporary relief in the joints. And it's the same phenomena in other body parts. So learning to have good muscle control. So I was talking to a student today about her hip, in fact, as it turns out. Learning, that locking the knee isn't just about the knee, it's about the whole leg, including the hip structure. And so learning to be able to tighten the muscles when you do that part of the practice so much that you're supporting your weight using your muscles and not your ligaments. And so that compression, even though it's very uncomfortable if you've actively got arthritis, after you've done it, there is a sense of relief as the circulation is improved. And over time, if it's repeated, the practice can be very beneficial for arthritis. And of course, we all know as teachers, one of our friends, Joseph Insigne, a gentleman who had childhood rheumatoid arthritis all through his body, crippling pains that he had. Sometimes he was in bed because the pain was so much as a child. And they gave him a lot of drugs. By the time he was 13, he had a heart attack because of all the drugs that were given to treat the RA. And so he decided to find a different way to treat this condition that was crippling him. And eventually, when he was in his late teens, he found this yoga. And so he found if he practiced every single day and really worked on practicing the best way he could with the body he had at that time, that his symptoms of RA would simply go away. He'd have to practice regularly. So if he stops practicing for days and days, the RA will creep back into his body. So it becomes his treatment regime, his sort of management regime for his health. So I think it's the same thing with the hip. It's a little bit harder with the hip because it's such a dominant big part of the body. So when it's in pain, that pain has an effect on the whole of the body. But it's the same process of learning how to stand in your legs, whether you're on one leg or two legs, and really stand in them strongly so you're elevated. I sometimes say to the students at the beginning of class, feet together, stand up proud. That sense that you're really elevated, you're really standing up straight. And it's that technique is everywhere in Bikram yoga, and it's very helpful. And obviously, if you're in severe pain, you're going to have to start small and work yourself into that.
So really, I only got to echo. I did like what Michelle said about it. You got there somehow. Whenever we have these things, movement-related problems, we got there somehow. So then the question is to unravel it backwards. And given the word modifications was used in the question, the modification would be to go slow and try the right technique. And the muscles, we all have muscles available to support whatever might be under there. Diagnosis of arthritis, some kind of surgery. The muscles still exist to help you to support those, and we should be using the muscles to do the postures.
Yeah, and most of the arthritis in a joint is a mechanical phenomena. I mean, it's caused by a mechanical phenomena in the body that's been happening over a long period of time. I mean, there are other reasons for it, but that's one of the most common, is how we use the body. So learning to more properly and more correctly use all those muscles to support that joint in everything we do, whether it's reaching for a cup of coffee or getting something from a shelf or just standing up straight, is a worthy exercise. It will bring health and strength and vitality to the body, no matter what's bothering you. Rajashree's joined us, though. Your camera's off, Rajashree, and you're muted right now. Welcome.
Read the question again.
Well, until she comes.
Yeah, just while we're waiting for Rajashree, arthritis, right? Itis, the inflammation. I mean, that's the thing that can be scary too, right? Because it can be so painful initially, and it is doing less, more. And even when I have, I don't have time, right? It's a particular day I'm not doing yoga, I will do breathing, half moon and camel. And for me, with my hip, it helps immensely to create that circulation, and a little bit of motion is lotion, right? And I feel better just doing that. So yeah.
While we wait for Rajashree, I've heard Rajashree talk about the difference between therapeutic yoga and yoga therapy. So what we're practicing 26 and 2 is therapeutic yoga, exactly what you just said, Michelle. You might not even be addressing the hip, but what you do has a holistic effect that the body can heal itself where it needs to. Then the other side, which perhaps Rajashree can talk to us about, is the specific therapy for the hip.
Yeah. 100%.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I am sorry, I'm not in Kolkata. I'm in Bihar. Went to promote some yoga event, and it's very difficult here to get all this Wi-Fi. Every time I'm trying to get the camera, it's cutting me off. So I'm just choose not to use the camera, but be, audible. Is that okay? If I can.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, Rajashree. It's nice to hear your voice.
So Rajashree, let me share with you the question that we were just addressing. It was a question that was sent in to us. And the question was, what are the recommendations for somebody who is new to yoga who has severe hip arthritis? Are there pose modifications that can allow a safe practice? And so we were just talking to that question.
Mm-hmm. More and more people are joining because of due to arthritis, osteoporosis, all these reasons, and they are finding out that doing yoga gives the movement. The way the movement happen in yoga, I remember in my teacher always used to talk about it, that you already just mentioned, because what I allow is joining is like a less is more. So allow yourself to be stable, allow your joint to be used, allow your movement to promote the muscle power, allow your holding, stabilizing the joint while you are moving, and holding, stabilizing the joint to improve the circulatory system.
Yeah.
So most of the time, the pain is less when it's a movable, because when you move, you feel little pain, but you start moving a little bit more and you start decreasing the pain because circulation happens, and you start feeling like there is some sensation. The beginning of the sensation, you start feeling that way, and then later it goes away. So what am I saying here in 26 and 2? When you start doing it, do as much as you can, but don't push it when you start feeling further pain. So the pain is how is that pain is. Everybody's different. Everyone's bodies is different. So everyone has a certain way of making that movement, like if it is when you are flexing or you are extending your legs or arms and you're lifting up, it's a degree, like I'm doing 5 degree, I'm lifting up my hands from my lap, I'm keeping my hands palm on my knee, and I'm slowly start letting my hands go up, straight up. And when I'm doing the start up, maybe it is parallel, arms like a parallel with my knee, that much I can do it. And when I'm doing that much, and if I do one more, it's like a one more inches up or centimeter up, I start feeling the pain there. Don't let that happen. I want you to be holding there and trying to feel yourself that am I getting comfortable by understanding with my breath, that not having an effortless breath. And while I'm lifting it up, if I am able to hold it there. See, a lot of time we do in yoga therapy, before we hold, we let that arms go a couple of times, movable, not being still. When it's moved, the joints start feeling a little bit loose, then it's able to lift it up. So that's why in 26 and 2, if you see, each poses, everyone has their own certain degree of difficulties and certain degree of the comfort. As soon as that discomfort comes, then its impact on your breath. As soon as it's impact on your breath, immediately you start feeling the pain. It's a kind of a reverse process. So you start breathing more, and you see if you can go a little higher or not, which we call most of the time is like the word is not coming into my mind at 3 a.m. in the morning in Kolkata.
Yeah, I know. It's so crazy.
It will come slowly because other people are sleeping. So I just have to be very quiet and respectable. So anyway, half moon pose, if you think about it. That's the one pose, like you are bringing arms over your head, maybe your shoulder and elbows are not straight all the way, but you are trying. And so what happened? If you are not able to do second left arms, you start doing that with the rights only. So when you try to do with the right arms, and then slowly you try to keep the left arm on the next to the wall, and then slowly try to support the wall, and let the weight off on the wall, and giving yourself a little bit stretch on there. And as soon as you do that couple of times against the wall, bringing arms up and down, arms up and down, you will see second day, you'll start feeling better because muscle understand that you started moving it. Do you follow what I'm saying? It's not about holding all the body weight on your joint, but you can let some of the joints off on the support system. That could be person who's standing next to you, helping you to teach or support, give you support, or maybe on the wall, maybe on the chair. That's the way we try. We just always say that doesn't matter what degree you can move, but try to move with your breathing, try to move with your own muscle power. Then you will start seeing the pain is, like I heard Matt, you were saying that getting something from the cabinet and you start feeling the pain, and getting something from the cabinet also is a trigger point. You see all of a sudden you are trying to do that. But if you do every day, it will go away because the arms knows to go and reach the cabinet and lifting up. It's a very interesting with the arthritis. I see that quickly it's get better.
Can I, Rajshri, I'm using my own example. I just want to see if I'm clear. Everyone is clear. So I have, it's my left hip that I have arthritis in. And so what I'm hearing you say is when I move into separate leg stretching, I'm very careful and I move into that very slowly. And there's a moment, I wouldn't say that I would hit pain, but I do hit a moment where I know I'm challenging it. And are you saying perhaps not challenge it and kind of just go to that point where I feel the muscles around the joint and just like hold it there, breathe there? Let that
I do because in the beginning you got to do it that way, because if you having a arthritis, and there is always, we talk about the joints inflammations, and it decreases slowly as soon as you start bringing the movement and bringing the more circulation in. So it doesn't happen in one day. It does happen continuous. So consistency is very important. Yes, you have to be careful when you do that. And then just the way you said it, do I push it through there? You don't push it through there in the first day. You push it through on the day of the 7th, when you know that you can do it. Do you understand? Like a lot of time people, but you must know that you start feeling good the first day, because it's amazing. Like I have the same left hips problem, and it's just another thing is all this in the hips problem. If you start lifting your left knee up from the floor and having holding the weights on the glutes and using the thigh muscles, the front thigh muscles more, that's very good in the arthritis, which can be practiced as soon as you get up from the bed, sit down, keeping feet down on the floor. Sitting on the bed, you start lifting the knee up and down, like a knee coming towards your chest. Look, that movement, because when you're lying on the bed, your hips are hurting when you get up from the bed. And how to make that step? We usually what we do, we turn and we stand up and we just feel ouch. And instead of that ouch, take your time and you breathe, use the stomach muscles a little bit and try to lift your knee up before you stand up. And it gives that movement and that lower back release. Hips feels comfortable, hips feel, okay, now I can move, I can walk, I can stand. So the yoga is the same way.
Yeah.
See, posture, we stay there. But before we do the posture, if you see the positioning yourself, the transition position, execution position for the every postures, that's already the preparation of the joints to feel, the extreme, but the extreme for that moment only. But the main circulation is happening during setting up the pose.
Yeah.
So the people usually be sluggish when they do pose. They think, okay, I turn and I bring my arms over and go sloppy way. But that's not the way to do it. The poses, that's setting the posture when your arms over your head, keeping feet, separated, and to turn. Each movement, it's always the movement to go into how you feel.
Yeah.
So it's a preparation. So that's very important. So many times it's not at the end of the pose, it's the beginning of the preparation, middle of the pose.
That's great insight. Yeah. I feel it. I get exactly what you're saying. And I thinking of what you're saying too, it makes me realize too, and I'm more grateful now that we have a second set, because I appreciate the second set. I know if I've done it right, then I'm going to get even more circulation and it feels a whole lot better. So yeah. Awesome. Jeff Aragon joined us. Hi there, Jeff. Good to see you. And I think it's Donna. Donna, nice to see you too.
You're muted, Donna.
Still muted.
There we go. Actually, Terry, I'm on my sister's Zoom.
Oh, so what's your name?
What's your name?
Terry.
Terry.
Yeah.
Terry.
Oh, Terry.
She's from Key West.
Yes, Rajashree. Hi. I'm in New Hampshire now. Yes.
Okay. After a long time, I see you.
I know, taking care of my mom. So originally Key West, Florida. Yeah.
That's great. That's super. Awesome. Well, that was a great question, and let's move on. If there's someone else that wants to add or to that, or with a question or more clarity or something else.
I have a question. I'm sorry, I can't get my video to work today for some reason. But my question is about low back pain, or just I seem to be having a lot of students coming in recently with a lot of back pain, low back pain, and forward folding being obviously any forward movement being much more challenging, but we don't modify, but we do less, we come more, do less. But at what point, and this is a challenging question, I mean, how do we encourage students to not make a career out of rolling over and instead of doing the sit-ups, or not coming forward on standing hand to knee? At what point, how do we as teachers kind of encourage people to move a little forward without, obviously you don't want people to re-injure themselves, and I just thought if you had some thoughts on that.
I certainly do, because this comes up quite often. I have quite a strong kind of sense when I interact with a student that presents like that, which is to help them understand why it's happening. Lower back pain is not an inevitability of a frail human condition. There are medical records going back thousands of years that track common ailments, and lower back pain was almost unheard of several thousand years ago. It's a product of lifestyle pattern. It's a product of how we're using our bodies and the weaknesses in our glute muscles and the weaknesses in our abdominal muscles, and our lack of an understanding of how to use those when we move in just everyday kind of movements, like standing up and sitting down and just standing up in general. So I think if you can get the student to understand that it's not a frailty that is a fact of their body, it's just a passing momentary issue to deal with, and there are tools to deal with it, then you can direct their attention to what to do in the room. So I usually start by saying to them, stand up straight. Right now in front of me, whilst you're standing in the lobby talking to me, stand up straight. Really stand up straight. Really chest up, stomach in, thigh muscles connected, hip muscles nice and tight. Really stand up straight. Now, does that feel better? It does, doesn't it? So now then you go in the room and, you know, maybe if your back is acutely bothering you, you do a little bit less of everything, but don't avoid anything because you've got to build that strength. And when you've built that strength, your problems will go away. And so obviously there are other causes of lower back pain, like trauma in a traffic accident. That's different. But for most people, lower back pain, 80% of the population suffer from it. And the solution is usually the same. So that's how I tackle it. And usually, you know, they get excited because they're like, oh, okay, so it's not a big deal. It's something I have the tools I can work on. I just need to put the time in to work on it.
Yeah, I just want to add a little bit to that because I like how you put that, Matt. I think all of us, right, whether we've had an injury or not, right, sometimes we feel something and right away our mind spins like it's permanent. Right. And that's where the fear comes in. And so the way that, Matt, how you put it, it's like, okay, well, you're kind of in a season right now. It's temporary. Right. And that in and of itself is a nice, like, relief, knowing that, you know, you just got to be careful because your mind plays tricks on you. Right. Thinking that this is never going to go away. Right. And, you know, post COVID, there's probably a little bit more lean towards that kind of also, too, with the anxiety and stress out there. But yeah, I mean, I'm in total agreement with what you're saying, Matt. I think it's indicative of the way in which we live, right? We're constantly forward bending. Even I'm doing a little bit right now, but but having the acute awareness, right? Am I engaging my abdominal muscles? You know, I kind of am. And am I used to doing that? Well, yeah, because I do a lot of yoga, right? So I agree. And for me personally, Carrie, when I hear somebody say that, and I automatically, and Rajeshri, I'd like for you to chime in on this right away. I automatically think about the 4 postures on the floor. My mind goes to cobra, half locust, full locust, cobra. You know, I feel like if there was, you know, postures for someone to focus on with, you know, back issues, all of it is important, but at least you're on the floor, and those 4, they're back bending, right? And that's what we want them to do, right?
Yeah. See, I agree for Matt and your Michelle, but also I will tell you, it's very quickly, I like the Matt's explanation about the standing straight, because we respond with our body with so much feelings. And why we feel that way, we don't even know the source of the feelings. So source of the feelings, if we are not standing straight, and if we are not standing straight, you having already a bad posture of your spine, and the posture is that you are not using your core. It's not that you have to suck your core all the time when you stand, but you have to be aware of where is the core. Are you pushing your hips forward or stomach sucking out? You know, like we creating already a lordosis, lower back that sways spine, by not aware of how we are standing. Is it my glutes? Sometimes it's abdomen, little bit being aware of the abdominal muscles, and little bit being aware of your glutes muscles, where you try to adjust yourself, and that immediately make your body, especially if you are having a bad standing posture, immediately change the shape of the poses. Immediately stomach goes in, you use a little glutes to support, to stretch from the lower back while you were only standing. Immediately you start feeling better. So it's a way of feelings, being connected with your feelings and ignorant of your body muscles connections, where our feelings takes over more, priority, and we start feeling okay, and I feel that way. And if you connect and that time be aware of how is my body, what position I'm standing or sitting or lying, how I can change it, use the muscles or use some kind of a breathing technique, immediately you will see that feelings goes away. See, Cobra pose. Why we feel good about Cobra pose? Because we are extension of the spine, like a backward bending arching, without having stand balance on the leg or on your feet. Your body is completely supported by the, earth or the floor. So the feelings goes away by the little bit of isometric stretching.
Yeah.
See, the same thing, this isometric stretching is so important. Doesn't matter what degrees isometric stretching is and what joint has that kind of a feelings. So anytime if that is, be conscious and aware of it and not let the feelings of pain be the main source, but the feeling of lacking what is we are ignoring in the body, focusing on that, immediately things change, it shifts right away. So we know how to manage the pain in our hand. So even her question was standing here to me, how do I tell them? Even the sit up, how do I tell the people? And we give them a little bit of tools like a bending knees, come up, try to use your muscles, abdominal muscles. And in a few days, you allow them, they get better. And sometimes we say going on the side and then slowly get the hand support and then slowly get up. That's still okay too. That's not a problem. But we can allow people to motivate them in the class that, see, can you try to do it without this? And see, for 3-4 days they're doing it, and then 5 days it's become a habit. So try to break that time and, encourage them instead of telling them that this is wrong you are doing, but encourage them like, let's see how you can use the words, some kind of a motivate them that it will help or it will be, you will feel better. I didn't hear what someone.
I think there was just some background noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I apologize. I have my mom back there.
No worries.
Okay.
Oh, no worries. No worries.
I would like to say something if I can. Are you done, Raj?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's also always going to be, you're going to come across the person who just has the back pain that won't go away, and you can't get them, or any pain that's not going away, and they're just in pain all the time, and possibly there's just like really a serious thing going on with them, and you can't like decide to just have them start pushing through it because it's not working. Myself, for example, I've years ago have spent a couple times talking with Raj about back pain that I had. I got to a point when I couldn't like even do the standing head to knee after being able to do it. And then a year ago, and this is several years since I've seen Raj and talked to her about it. I had to have a hip replacement. I just couldn't even walk anymore. And I was going to yoga every day, and I was like, I'm going to get through this. And I'm telling myself my body's changing and it's going to be better afterwards. And but my hip joint was just worn out. And now that I have that replaced, I mean, everything just stopped hurting that was hurting. So I don't think we can always assume that we're going to get somebody to work through their ailments. I think that
I think all our life, we always work through our ailments, Terry, because I mean, the pain is definitely lacking some, movement, or lacking some of the emotions, or holding some of the emotions. I believe that because most of the time, if my body is alert because I'm in stress, my body is alert, my muscles are tight, and I try to move, I feel pain. But the day I'm in a very joyful mood, everything going fine, I've slept well, and I'm movable, and I have good energy, I don't feel any pain.
Yeah.
If you think about some, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that too, but I think from what, just from years of teaching, you just run across people that just have deeper,
But why?
deeper
why?
issues in this country,
Wha-
especially because of our lifestyle, that
Yeah, but why do
they're already
why do you
damaged.
think? Why
Go
do you
ahead.
think?
Go ahead,
folded on the-
Rajeshri. Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah,
Raj.
why do you think? Why do you think standing folded on the knee, doing the folded on the knee, keeping both legs fully locked is the most important? I don't see that. If I do little legs, I still feel good. Why
No,
I'm
I
not
don't-
going to be
yeah.
having?
I don't
Yeah,
think it's
I'm
so
just-
important. I was just saying, like what I could do, and then I, at this point that I couldn't do it. To the
When
That's
I
all right.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing, and Rajeshri, this might be, if you can add to this, Terry, for you to get relief, good for you, right? And where is that threshold where you're like, you're beating yourself up going, gosh, I want this to heal on its own. I want to take all this yoga and I don't want to have hip replacement surgery, right? And there was just a point where maybe you said, I've got to do this for me because I'm in, a lot of pain. And it sounds like, right, if I'm not mistaken, you say that you don't have any more pain and you feel good. Are you doing the yoga?
Yes. Yeah. So what I'm just saying is I think it was Kelly, which I don't see her here anymore.
Carrie.
Oh, there she is, Carrie. Yeah. Was asking, like, when do you stop allowing the student to take it easy, kind of, not in those words, like if they're rolling over to get up, and like, when do you start pushing them to go beyond that? But what if they can't go beyond that? Because I've seen that. And
Yeah,
I've
so Donna,
experienced
I don't think we're not talking. None of this conversation is about pushing people or getting them to push themselves. It's only about bringing attention to actions that can be beneficial to the body. So, for instance, one of the most dangerous things you can do with lower back pain is to tentatively do something. Like you tentatively do your back bend, or you tentatively do standing head to knee, because when you're tentatively doing something, you're concentrating on what to avoid rather than what to do, versus bringing attention to what you're doing. And maybe you don't do very much of it. Maybe you do very little of it, but your attention is on what you're doing. So your muscles are engaged, your body is concentrating on how to move healthily. And maybe if you have acute pain, you're doing very, very little.
Yeah.
And obviously, if your pain is dragging on for a long period of time, then seeking some medical advice about what's really going on underlying it is a smart move.
Wise. Yeah.
The key thing is to have people's attention on conducive action, not about pushing. That's not going to be helpful, but
I'm not
just a step by step do each piece. That's all.
But
I think what I'm hearing from what I think I'm hearing as the feedback is a continuing conversation with the person in terms of the student, with in terms of it's the continuing conversation of how things are going, and so that, because as we all know, our students we're human beings, we like to get in habits, and sometimes those habits aren't necessarily the best for our body health, for our overall health. And so to encourage students continuously to be achieving that health is just like I said, what I'm hearing from Raj and from Michelle and Matt and Donna, even you, is just to continue this it's a continuous conversation. It's not just like a one time and there we go. And hopefully the student is going to be magically 3 days from now, 3 weeks from now, whatever, and they're back doing whatever they were doing and la-di-da. Sometimes there needs to be that continuous conversation.
Yeah. And it's a good point though, Terry, because the yoga is constantly teaching you to lean into doing things to take care of your own health. Right. I mean, if there was the biggest lesson out of it, right, is that, you constantly, regardless of the maybe bigger things that have to be supported by Western medicine, you always want to be doing things, right, that you can do. And there's nothing better than this yoga, right? Yeah. So.
Good conversation.
Yeah, really, really good. Rajeshri, you got more to add on that one?
One thing.
Yeah,
sorry, Dr. Margie. I just wanted to say, as a student, if you can't get past step 1, step 2, step 3, if you're stuck in step 2, there's a lot of work you're doing while you're stuck in step 2 because you haven't accomplished what needs to happen there. So if you just relax and listen to the dialogue and feel your body, I'm doing a lot when I'm stuck. Sometimes Half Moon, I'm like barely got my arms over my head, can't get my legs straight, but I'm doing a lot of work standing there, not even bending. And so just as a student, you know, maybe as a teacher, just remind them, even though you're not moving where you think you should today, you're still working.
Yeah,
Right.
that's a good point.
I was reminding a student just last week who had lower back pain, telling them a story about, there was a very famous yoga teacher who's taught Rajeshri, in fact, B.K.S. Iyengar. And one of the things he would teach some of his students, he would have them stand up straight, arms by their side, for half an hour. And for half an hour, he would talk to them and bring their attention to various parts of their body and the actions that they were taking to actively stand up straight. And that alone could be beneficial for lower back pain for many people, for many common conditions of lower back pain. The simple exercise of that. So again, it's not about, as Christy said, it's not about how much we're doing, but it is about the attention we bring. And the bringing our mind to the body parts is a very critical piece of this process. If you're, just throwing yourself through the motions of all these actions, you're not going to get anywhere near as much benefit as if you slow down a little bit and consciously engage your mind in each of the actions step by step. And then whatever happens, happens. That's the nature of things.
Right.
Yoga is all about mindfulness. And every time when we are still in the mindfulness of, connecting with ourselves, it's already a growth in us, like it's already a therapy. Already it's kind of constant relief of the pain, even because it's a mindfulness bringing us the awareness of the body itself to be ready and relax. Be ready and relax. If sometimes that is called like a squeeze it and relax, if you how it does effects in the body, it is almost the same way. Ready and relax. You will see mind is constantly going in one time in the altering constantly between those two zones. And then all of a sudden you start feeling the relaxation because of how long you can go seesaw, and then you surrender to yourself, being mindful. And that's good feeling. That is actually the yoga's pure essence, That's why we always say, be mindful when you've been bringing your arms over your head. Even if you cannot even touch your both the palms together, doesn't matter how far you can go, be aware of it, be aware of the feelings, and keep bringing the breathing there, and then relax on that when you are stretching and breathing. It's a beautiful feeling. Yeah. That's the healing part. That's called healing. Yoga really heals the body. With as much as we can give in, that much we can get out from the yoga. But it's not the posture judged by how performance would be. Postures judged by every day, how you receive it from the pose, how you experience from the pose.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Makes me, I think of the words, Christy, when I'm listening to you and hearing Rajeshri, like, the nourishment that you're getting, right? And the, we all getting, right? In the, not body, but mind, right? Awesome. Great one. Anyone else have another question that we can?
He does.
Okay.
Perfect timing.
Yeah. Dog has a question.
Yes.
He's got to wait. She's got to wait. Yeah. Go for it, Jeff.
I don't think I have anything. I might have been one of the people that Matt was talking to about stand up straight. So I've been off. We're up in the Northwest, and the car just broke down. So We're stuck up here by Seattle for a little while. I don't know how long, because now all the shops are saying, oh, nothing before Thanksgiving.
Oh dear.
We were going to be on our road on the way down today. So I just wanted to say hi to Rajashree too.
Hi, dear. Yes, I
yes,
can
how are
see
you?
all of you.
Yes.
How am I? I think my eyes are closed and I'm answering all the questions. That's what I am.
You're acting like it's the middle of the night.
Yes.
It is. It is
Yes.
for her. It is
So
for her.
she's
Yeah.
so you're in India, of course, makes sense.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Well,
Yeah,
join us
it's-
online, Jeff. Join us online. Get your yoga in online on the live stream.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I forgot all about that.
Yeah, like you used to do. How could you forget?
Do you have
Yeah.
your dialogue with you?
I do.
Excellent.
Well,
See, that's
yes.
what
Yes.
Yeah. So Shireen, you have your hand up. I don't know if that was intentional.
Yeah. No, I had a question. I think it's a little more technical question. It's probably a small thing, but I was always wondering why the series was designed that you always step out and step back with the same leg. Because I do notice I have a strong asymmetry. I can stabilize on my left leg a lot better because we always step out with the right and back with the right. And I was just wondering if there was a reason why it was always stepping out and in with the same leg. Because if you repeat something, even a small thing every day, like it does create an imbalance. So yeah, I was just out of curiosity because everything else is so strictly symmetric. It's just this one thing that is always on one side.
Can I answer one thing about that? Many people practice it. I'm like you. My left leg stabilizes better, but that's not true of everyone who practices Bikram yoga. For example, Matt's right leg stabilizes better, and he steps the same way. So that's not necessarily the cause. That's just I just put a seed. Yes.
I don't know. I mean, I think the most qualified person to answer that question is
I
Rajashree.
was going to say, let's have Rajashree answer
Yeah,
that.
listen, I will answer this question because I don't want to make you guys confused about it. We did this dialogue, okay, and the dialogue has this is the way because of to make the class run smoothly and keep it disciplined. And most of the people are definitely are righty. You know, I don't see it so much. Don't take it personally, but people like to use right leg first when they stay going forward. I see very rare people take the left step forward when they start walking. Are you with me? So everything started that way. And why did we do that? We don't know, because that's the way the body moves with the right and left and right and left. We never say left and right and left and right. It's just and second thing is that in India, when we were growing up, we just wanted to make sure that, you know, when we teach people, right is we worship always the sun, and we always try to worship the sun first, which is the right. We always talks about the right side of the body being the stronger and the strength, and that is the sun side of the body, and left is the moon. So we always take the strength to use and warm up, then to go into the left. And at the same time, if you do first left, if you go on to the left to the right, you are not violating any law, but you are really making things. If you are in the class, maybe you are breaking in the system, but it's nothing to violate the law, because I'm just telling, because I know how in India, when we are growing up and we are getting practiced, and we used to get, I won't say the punish, but they used to say that, why did you do it that way? But same time, when they are using as a therapy, they use people different way, because that time they try to use that as a support system, whatever they need to promote or need to be, helpful, or need to have weight on. Or try to get resistance better. But everything has a process. Everything has already been certain way being set up, and then we follow the system. So this is a system that we
Yeah.
follow in yoga. So if you want to break it, it's your hand, your choice. Nobody is telling you, but system we follow. So this is the system of yoga from the beginning. And we never question because we didn't know who to ask that question. Because it's a parampara, it's going on from the long time. So there is a scientific explanation, or there could be a spiritual explanation, because how you follow that, the process being unfolded.
It's funny, I could share a little story about this symmetry from, some of you are familiar with the Iyengar style of yoga, and there was a great deal of emphasis on symmetry in his teaching, to the point where his generations of teachers of Iyengar yoga would be almost called out for how obsessive they were about symmetry. And apparently he rather famously went on a bit of a rant to his teachers in Pune when he said, "You missed the point. The symmetry wasn't about symmetry. It was about comparing one side to another so you could gain insight into the movement of your body. I was never asking you to become symmetrical. Your body's not symmetrical. Your heart's on one side, your spleen is on the other side. It's like your body's not symmetrical, but noticing the differences between your left and your right is an interesting exercise in deepening your awareness of yourself and your existence." And so, and I thought that was really interesting. It was like, okay, all right, yeah, maybe I was getting a bit too narrow-minded in focusing on one little detail. So that's another perspective to add into this mix.
Yeah.
Well, when I was in the training, I'm left-handed, and I went into Bikram's office one day, and I said, and I had a question about what happens if you're left-handed, and he's like, "You can't be." You don't ask, and you don't ask. He never asked, you don't ask.
Yeah.
My mindset goes there. I feel like when there's a protocol, or like especially in yoga, I feel like what you were saying resonates with me, Rajshri, where I feel like I'm following a lineage of something, right? And I don't need to question it. I just don't need to question it. I'm grateful that you asked it, Shireen, because I don't think we've ever really talked about it. So we can put this out there.
I have just one other perspective, which is a more practical, but similar to what Matt said, that just in case anyone's worried, it's a problem of Western human beings or human beings in general. Horses actually are sided. They have one strong side and one weak side, and it can be left or right, just like us. And they're just naturally doing that out in the field. Because I used to work with horses that didn't live in stables, but ran around in herds, and they all have it. Yeah. So it's not a problem, unless you try to fix it. Interesting to study in yourself, though.
Yeah, right. And that's why the 26 and 2 day after day, the sameness, right, gives you that ability for you to be able to create more insight. It's not shifting and changing. That amazing repetition, helps you ask questions. Right?
But one thing you can do, Shireen, as an exercise, outside of the normal format of the class is, for say standing separate leg stretching or something, take a big step to the left, paying very much attention to how you moved your hips and your legs and your feet, and take a step to the right and just go backwards and forwards between those, and just see can you observe something different about how you use your hips, how you stabilize your legs in each of those situations that might give you insight into something that could be adjusted in how you take your step to the right. Just by comparing the two sides, you might notice something about, like, I put a lot of stability in my lower leg, but not so much in my hip, or vice versa, or something,
Thanks.
Nice to see you here, Shri. Yeah, and there's Grace in there too. Do you have a question for us, Shri?
Yeah, I have this, same thing about the symmetry. Like my two sides are so different, and it constantly, bothers me throughout the class, almost for every posture. Even like, Savasana, I can feel like the two hips are not equally touching the mat. And that sometimes takes away, like, from the kind of the peace from the Savasana. So this, discussion is very, very relevant to me.
Savasana is also one of the hardest I find to be aligned. I mean, I started now using my sweat imprint to actually see how straight my head and neck are, because if I think I'm straight, I'm really not. And even looking around the room, a lot of people are pretty crooked when they think they're straight. So it's really hard to know yourself. So I use the tip of my nose kind of as a guidance, and then the sweat on my towel to try and even it out. But it's not easy.
Cool.
Yeah, it's actually hard, when you have more awareness of yourself, it gets in the way of being peaceful. Otherwise, it would have been nice if I didn't know that, but now since I know, it bothers me a lot. I'm trying, not to be bothered, but it's not as easy. So this topic is quite relevant to me. The two sides not being same and being kind of aware of it and be disturbed by it to some extent.
Raj,
that was really the.
Go ahead. I was just going to see if Rajeshri had something to say about that particular point, like not being satisfied.
Well, I will talk about the Shantosha, the contentment. It's, what she brought up a very nice point. That's the satisfaction, how we satisfy ourselves. So physical body is a way to express the mind, what kind of a mindset or what's going on in your emotional life, because it reflects through our body, physical body. Like, observe yourself a little bit, daily routine, that are you satisfying in your what you're doing? If there is any kind of a difficulties going on right now that making you feel each moment when you are moving your body, forget only in the class 26 and 2, but in daily life, if that has any any kind of consequences, how you think, what goes on, and unsatisfaction of something dealing with your daily life. Because a lot of time we don't see that though. Because certain little things we watch, if something is not right in our life, even could be in the pose or it could be in the feelings of the body. So if everything is fine, the mind is joyful, a lot of little small things we don't even notice where we get attached to and put attention on. So I will ask you, Shireen, just to see and take a notes of your life daily, a couple of days, and see what dissatisfies you. I feel like all of us, we have a good day, bad day. All of us, we have a good hips, bad hips. All of us, we have a good day of balance. And in practice, on other days, not a good balance. But there is it represent what goes on in our life, daily life. So how we can balance that. I'm trying to give you not the postural correct, I'm trying to give you some insight of our conscious correct, like where is the basic yoga opens up the door of thinking, feelings coming from our within to be peace within ourselves. It's very, very interpersonal relationship. I'm talking because I feel like that's something you're going through in life. And the posture is the way of expressing that feelings or that state of mind.
That makes sense to me. Thank you. Thank you for the insight. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
You're welcome. So you will feel better now. It will pass on very, very soon. Just keep doing it and see one day you will say, oh my God, how far I came. It's coming there. You're reaching there soon.
Wow. The yoga is so much, right, Shri? I feel like
yeah.
Released a little bit already right now.
Yeah.
Think of it, I think sometimes you asked yourself that question because you've become more aware of yourself, and you've become more aware of how you're thinking of yourself. So that is all part of, I think, what we're kind of on the side discovering, along with all the postures or the positions or the movement and how we do with that. It all comes together with that awareness of what we're trying to accomplish, and the obstacles that get in the way, and how we handle those obstacles. And just that's all, I think, personally, part of that self-awareness that's slowly emerges with time.
Yeah, and what a great example. You Shri, thank you for sharing. And Jeff, like I hear Rajshree say that it's like those thoughts, you guys, if they're in the dark, then they're controlling us, right?
Yeah.
They're illumined, right? Then, you know, then they're not. They're there for us to see and embrace and not fight and work with, right? So
the dangerous thing also with injury or asymmetry, I think it becomes almost your identity, and then you go into the class and you already think, I have a knee injury, I have a shoulder injury, and it determines so much of your practice. Whereas if you can actually let go of that and just practice regardless, and yes, you have those limitations, but I practice very differently when I already program like 5 poses ahead and know this one's going to come up that hurts my shoulder or my knee. Whereas if I just don't think about it and I'm just in the posture, and if there is pain or something, I'll feel it in the moment, but I'm not obsessed about it, or it's not part of my identity in a way. I think that's also like a thing. And asymmetry, I think, is the same. If you already know you have asymmetry and it becomes such a big part of who you are, that's also sometimes you just like autocomplete into it, as opposed to, I don't know. Yeah.
Very well said.
Yeah, very much so. It's also, you know, your attention is a magnifying glass. So, you know, obviously pain is the body's way of asking you to pay a bit more attention to something. But the same, like you said, if you have these preconceived areas of focus, then obviously the closer you look at something, the more it's going to look odd. You know, it's like the classic thing with engineers, that engineers end up breaking the thing they're trying to fix because they're so fixated on the problem itself. And then they're like, well, this screw's not right. And then they tighten and break it. And then, well, this bolt's not right, you know, and then they break that. And then, so, you know, letting go of your attention and just flowing through the class, just step by step, that just ceases to be a problem anymore. But the symmetry thing is funny. It's useful to notice that one shoulder's up like this because something's going on, but it's not useful to be fixated on trying to get your shoulders to be precisely the same height, because that might not actually be the natural frame of your body.
Go ahead, Rajshree, do you have something to add to that? It's a beautiful topic, actually.
No, I think I'm actually right now receiving myself. I'm enjoying this topic. You guys talk. I just said it because I felt it that time when Shireen was saying, you know, because it's a very, very interpersonal feelings. Because some days in the class I noticed everything is wrong, and some day in the class I find so much better. You know, so it's a really interpersonal feelings that we really need to be connected, and that's what the yoga we practice for.
Yeah,
you know, so it's all the magic is in our hands if we let this door happen to be open and allow ourselves to be, you know, receive it. Because many times we don't know how to receive it. Yeah, we resist, and in the yoga classes we try to notice that the resistance is so strong that if we allow a little bit to relax, we feel better, but we don't. And that's why my whole terminology about how to approach as a therapeutically, because therapeutically applying is to take this mind with a different level, that is, you know, allow yourself to go beyond the fear. Because most of the time fear resists us, because what is going to be unwinding, what is going to be something experience, I don't want to experience that anymore. See, confidently, do you want to experience anymore? That's very different. But if you are worried about something unknown, then that fear will never go away, that the body is just like that.
I feel another way that I'm hearing this to you guys, and it's so helpful for myself very much at this point is if we have something that's milling and premeditated, right, then it
Yes.
into the class as fear. Whereas the 26 and 2, I think it works for all of us that are talking about this right now, because we're so in the moment with the instruction that at the moment, if that information comes to us, it becomes curious as opposed to a judgment we made about it.
That's true. Because
Right.
it's adult mind, we always make the judgment, prejudgment before even we, being curious. Because so if you are curious mind, let that be still life.
Yeah.
I always say.
Yeah, this is Joel. I was going to add, when it comes to pain, I had a situation this week that was enlightening for me, and that was a tweak of knee pain. Nothing that was preventing me from doing most of the practice, and all other activities outside the practice, running, walking, wasn't having anything debilitating. But I happened to mention to Angie that my knee was bothering me on occasion. It's like I twisted it a little bit. And so in my mind, I think, well, when it hurts in the practice, I need to just not do that. And she had, because she's practiced much longer and taught, also, she had the foresight to say, well, show me, what posture does it hurt in? Well, I said, well, it hurts in tree. When I'm getting into tree, I notice it. That's it. At that point in the practice is where it hurts. And she said, well, show me how you do that. And so she watched me, and immediately, because of something that Matt had helped her with, perhaps years ago, she said, oh, well, you're pulling up your foot without engaging your hip to push your knee out. And so that, having someone to watch me do it and realize, oh my gosh, I can do this now without that pain, or with certainly much more minimal pain, and not continually hurting it. Because all this time, and it's amazing to me, you can go a long, long time doing it wrong and continuing the pain and the hurt. When if someone could just watch how you're just going through the motions to get set up, you can have this amazing eureka moment. And for me, it was just like, oh my gosh, that is life-changing. I mean, in terms of moving forward in the practice. So that was interesting to me. That
and give yourself credit too. I mean, that's awesome. I think that's how we learn right from each other, but also too, that's what the yoga is doing, is kind of giving you more and more awareness so that you have that eureka moment yourself, right? It doesn't have to be your knee, it can be anything, any behaviors in your life, right? Where you're having, a moment where, oh, this isn't, the way I'm doing this isn't working for me. It's not working, right? Like, right.
I think it's one of the most difficult lessons for us all to learn, that pain is just information. It doesn't mean stop, it means pay attention.
Right.
And we interpret it as being stop, which is one thing you could do momentarily to help you pay attention. But it's like the grinding the gears in a car. That's not the car telling you to stop driving the car. That's the car telling you to use the clutch properly.
Right.
It's just information. And so if we can be in that mindset, either in our own exploration or to turn to a friend, a partner, a teacher and say, this happens, I noticed this, any insights, any offers? I think it should be a big breakthrough, not just obviously for doing posture mechanics, but just in our life in general, that if we could always be, every time I feel any kind of pain or discomfort, oh, okay, pay attention a bit more closely, concentrate.
I add another word is attachment too.
Yes.
So attention and attachment, both. Now you let it think about this. What does that mean?
Absolutely. I had Joel, you were mentioning your knee. I had a very strange situation with my knee. We were driving up the coastal highway and I'm just driving. I get out of the car in a parking lot and I almost fall on the floor with intense pain in my knee. And I'm like, God, I don't have any problems with my knee. What the hell's going on? And it was very painful for like 10 minutes. And eventually I figured out when I got back in the car, it was because I wasn't sitting in the seat properly. My hip was twisted, which meant my knee was twisted. So every time I was on the accelerator, I was just stressing out my knee. Very simple. And so then moving, sitting up properly in the chair, it all went away, problem solved. Oh, Christy has a question. You're muted, Christy.
Okay. It's, and I don't know how to, this is going to open a big dialogue. In separate leg stretching, where you reach behind and grab your heels or grab the side of your feet. Some people, if you can't reach, have you grab your calves. And each place you put your hand, you engage your legs differently and you use different muscles. As teachers, for students who are having trouble reaching their heels, what is you, because I do it different ways, because a lot of times I'm at home and sometimes I kind of do what I want or what I need that day. Is there an action that is more preferred when you're having trouble reaching your heels?
Rajeshri, you want to talk to this one first?
You guys can go. It's very simple answer. It's in dialogue. So we just needed to follow what the dialogue says. If someone cannot reach the heel, we first start with weight on, going forward, stretching through the spine, and then touch the floor and let the leg to be more solid, straight. That's, I'm sure we all heard about it. And then when we start reaching out, that's the time the knees start bending. Then maybe you need to stay there a little bit longer to be comfortable and stretch your spine more forward. I will do that way. This is basically, and then when I start grabbing it, I try to grab wherever it makes me feel to stretch throughout the body. And sometimes I saw people holding from the side. Sometimes I saw people holding the calves and keeping their legs straight. Sometimes I saw people holding their toes and even keeping their legs straight. So the leg straight for me is very important if that can be done, because that stretches so much hamstring, hips, piriformis, side, everything is there for me, and then lower back. So otherwise, as long as lower back is curved, we would never be able to keep the leg straight, because that means there is still rigidity. That's the way I go through slowly with the therapeutic way, that I really let people see where they are feeling comfortable to hold, when they can keep their legs straight, both legs straight. That's my first point to watch, observe. You are talking about Danda Mana Vibhakta Paschimottanasana, right? Not Jadusirasana.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys can answer whatever you guys think.
Matt, Sarah, you want to add to that, to Christy's? Sarah, you want to?
I really agree with Rajeshri. Generally, I will tell you the dialogue, what it says, but individual things, I've had people grab the calves and then open their legs more, the legs still straight, and they just slide their hands down little bit, and that will work for many people to understand it. But yes, the legs must be straight. The goal to stretch the spine. And if that means in the beginning that you can't grab on the feet, then get what you can, and then we work with it.
Does that help, Christy? Yeah.
Shireen, you look like you said you wanted to say something as well.
So the key point I think is what was missing for me to understand was legs straight is what you need to focus on. Don't worry where your hands are, or spine straight, legs straight, and your hands are where their hands are. But just as long as you keep your legs straight, that's what I need to focus on.
Some things the hands somewhere that you can pull to stretch your spine.
Yeah, because remember, right, like you talked before about being stuck and stuff too. I mean, you're kind of, this isn't permanent. You're in a season, and what's your starting point for you? You've got to have that straight legs in order for you to be able to pull safely, to get the stretch in the areas that are tight, right? So
Good
yeah.
question.
Yeah.
Shireen, yeah, you had something?
Oh, it's for a different posture, but since we're talking about postures again, I did have a question for triangle pose or warrior going into that. I'm always confused when people say forward in a class. Do they mean the mirror or forward where your right arm is facing?
The mirror.
Because I'm basically very confused with what my hips are supposed to do. I feel like here very, like, say I step out with my right foot and I'm told to like my left hip. I thought that in Warrior 2, at least in other lineages, you want to open your hips, but then it's always like push your hip forward. And I'm not sure if that means I should kind of close it and then twist the opposite way with the arms. I'm just very unsure with hips.
So one way you can think about this, Shireen, is that every time you hear us say in the dialogue, push the hips forward, your thighs should be counteracting that. So for instance, on the straight leg, the hip pushes forward, but the thigh pulls back to lock the knee to give you a solid foundation all the way up into the hip joint. In the case of the bent leg, the bent hip's pushing forward whilst the knee is pushing back to straighten everything up. So the 2 feet are in one line from the side.
So it's not about a rotation. It's
no,
about
no. So yeah, it is an opening up of the hips, definitely.
Okay.
He talks about that in tree pose. It says, just like in triangle. So your hip muscle, your thigh muscles, they work together as a pair in that process. And so you'll hear us say push the hips forward and down, but you're thinking about it, if your hips pushing forward, but your leg is getting stronger, down is just sitting down a little bit more. But there shouldn't be a sense in which your leg is falling forward and down, because then you'll see that your straight leg is bending and you've lost all the stability in your knee and your hip on the straight leg. And that leg should be solid, locked, and the foot flat on the floor throughout the posture, just like it would be in Virabhadrasana 2 or Warrior 2.
Okay, so the hips in this posture should be facing the front mirror, ideally.
Yes,
So
yes. And the reason that correction is in the dialogue where it is, and it's repeated so often, is that what you'll see with a stiff beginner is effectively they're leaning forward and their butt is sitting backwards, and their body's essentially not straight. And so their correction is to push their hips forward and bring their chest back, which is because we say that at the beginning of the posture when you're in Virabhadrasana 2, we say push your hips forward, bring your upper body back, sit down, stay down there, and then move your both arms. But yeah.
Because I always understood it as meaning I had to close my hips when it was like bring your left hip forward, and I was always confused because part of me was like, oh, shouldn't it open? But then it was like, okay, close it.
No, and another way to think of it as another reference point is that you should be driving weight through the outside of the heel of the straight leg to drive that foot down into the floor to contribute to the muscular lock of the leg, of the knee, of that straight leg. And then you'll feel solidity and stability all the way through, from the ankle to the knee to the hip, all the way up and down the leg. And in fact, some people who've been practicing a long time who don't do that then have hip problems, because they don't have true stability in that hip. And so it's very difficult as a teacher to spot that. So you have to really kind of zoom in to notice somebody who seems to be doing triangle very well, but actually is kind of collapsing into that hip a little bit.
Okay, thank you.
Rajeshri, you want to add to that?
I think Matt adds a very good.
Anybody want to add to that? It's a good question, Shireen, because it hasn't come up in a while, but it used to come up a lot.
Yes, it did, and people made. I would prefer in my own practice not to get too entangled in the fine details of what my hips are doing in triangle, but more what am I doing with my muscles, just pushing the muscles from the behind forward, and where my hips go on that day will be where they go. Not trying to close them, not trying to open them, but taking the action. Because as soon as the mind gets involved, little tiny details, then this becomes a problem again, an attachment. But
it's an interesting exercise as you develop more awareness, that if you just think about even like the exercise of standing up straight, to stand up straight involves pushing your hips forward and pulling your thighs back and your abdomen back. These three actions are very interrelated and they occur everywhere in the practice. And so, I mean, obviously, as beginners, we don't notice it. We don't need to. We just take the actions. But over time, you start to see that every time you're using your hip muscles, your thigh muscles should also be engaging. And they work together to stabilize the upper leg and the hip joint. And they work, you know, as you get more fluid with it, you'll just feel a more and more satisfying stability that results from that.
We're, you know, in triangle posture too, like I'm used to say this a lot, Rajshri, right? The hips go down and forward and the upper body goes up and back, right? You're getting a spine twist out of it. So you're like me, Shireen, a little bit. Like I want you to just sort of, I just feel like saying this to you, that if you get a little bit too anal about it, then you're
for that triangle you're talking about.
I mean, everybody's hips are different, right? You see, everybody's hips are, and so they, but moving the hips forward is key, right? The hips
moving the hips forward, and I also try to. I find myself in my practice in this triangle that you know, like before even leaning towards right or left, the center, when we bend the knee and we try to give ourselves a positioning, the final, before you approach to the final position, that position is a key to this and gives the everything to this posture. Because when you are opening your leg, stretching your arms, one step, and you observe yourself how you're moving it, and then when you bend the knee, and then you're pushing the hips forward and upper body back, immediately you will see your body weight in different direction. And you try to engaging the core, you try to engaging the thighs, try to engaging the glutes, you will, and you also have to focus on your spine, where your spine is. Is it the center, or is it leaning towards left? Or is it leaning towards right or leaning forward? If that moment, if you make the spine is the center force or center part, you know, which is kind of covers how it will move my arms in the final position. I feel that position for me is a very, very good where I put more impact on my teaching. Because at the end, when we keep the right arms down, left arm stretching, or left arm down, right arm stretching, that's the traction there. But the real stability with the traction, extension, and holding stabilization of the hips, and helping hips to recuperate from all kinds of pains, and you know, and build up the longevity of the pain. And longevity of the hips. I'm not talking, sorry, pain, I'm said it, but it's longevity of the hips. I think that centering your position, keeping your spine center, not to lean towards the foot so much, and not to lean towards the left, being arm stretching to keep the shoulder up, you know, but being yourself there, and same time in that position, try to see, can your abdomen is holding like a lot of threshold, or being abdomen being a little bit relaxed. Because in this pose has a lot of internal organ benefit. Lots of internal organ, kidney, pancreas, and you know, if you look at it, those two has a lot to do with our whole body. I mean, this posture is very, very important to keeping the immune cells and immunity constantly, you know, positive way. So it's kind of immune boost pose for me. So I just put a lot of emphasis on that position in the triangle. So when you practice, when you teach, focus on that. People suffers in that position. People struggles in that position.
Can Raj,
Yeah.
I just want to be clear. I recall you teaching, and when you're saying spine in the center, it's in the setup, right? When we turn our foot and bend the right knee, you know, you're keeping your spine. Does that make sense? That's right. Yeah.
It is a setup. It is a setup for before you approach to the final state of the posture. But I'm just saying, going into that setup position before you approach to the final position, how it's supposed to be. I'm just saying that go the final position with lots of confidence, not, do you know what I mean? Like I've put a lot of my feelings in that. That's my personal practice. I just do it there because I feel a lot sometimes. We take so much in the center when we are setting up ourselves. We are not sure how we are setting up ourselves. We are a lot of things we carry. If we're setting up ourselves free from all those judgment we create, or how we feeling it, or compromising it, or little bit of like, okay, I will be, I just bear with this and then get out of pose. Have you seen people jump out from the pose very fast? And why can we not hold on to that feelings? Even if it is a discomfort, to create the comfort zone, break through the discomfort to the comfort zone.
Yeah.
I'm trying to talk with the psychosomatic feelings of the mind and the body's connection into the pose.
Yeah.
And that has a lot to do with our autoimmune system, and that has a lot to affect on all these organs. So is the psychosomatically, if I dissect this pose, I see that there is a kind of a resistance we build inside within ourselves conceptually, which is maybe if we face it, we can overcome that conceptually being ourselves, in this pose.
Wow. Good question and a powerful answer.
Powerful answer, yes, wonderful. Thank you.
Oh, wow, Matt, right. It's you guys, it's 3:30 already.
Can I leave now? Can I go back?
No, you gotta stay, Rajeshri.
Good way to end.
We adore having you, and let's do this again in the next few months, okay, Rajeshri? I'll let you know, but it's wonderful having these conversations, you guys.
Can I just say one thing? Yeah, I just want to say something about the dialogue. It's really it's a beginner's dialogue. So as teachers, we have to notice when a student needs a different sort of correction, like Matt was saying, hips forward, upper body back. That's because like everybody's like this. So standing half moon, hips forward, body back. Tree pose, hips forward, body back. Triangle pose, hips forward, upper body back. Beginner's dialogue. So, we have to recognize when the student needs like a more advanced correction, and they're not always going to ask us because for whatever reason they're shy or whatnot. But so that for us, hips forward, body back. But I think it was CJ, it was probably more of an advanced correction for her.
Well, let's end with actually the dialogue really is for everybody I understand it's.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, it's a beginner's dialogue so people know how to get in and out of the postures.
Right. Then I think in Shireen's case, in my case, a lot of times too, we don't want to overanalyze either too.
For sure.
Yeah. Then we get in big trouble. So good stuff, guys. Yeah.
3 months. We've got 3 months till the next one.
Yeah. So save up your questions.
We'll have to send out a save the date.
Yes. Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Yes.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanksgiving to everybody. Thank you.
Grateful
Thank you, my love.
for our yoga family, right?
Yeah.
Wherever you are.
Thank you, everybody.
Great
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you, Rajeshri. Thank
Thanks
you.
for your time, you guys. Namaste.
Namaste.